week is
Okay,
over.
welcome to the meeting of November 3rd. Before we get to the regular part of the agenda, just want to have a public safety, the police chiefs provide the board with updated information and also the people listening at home. This morning, we had a possible incident at Town Hall. The situation proved to be benign. However, all the protocols were followed. Both chiefs, Board of Health, Town Administrator, Milford Hospital worked together very closely, constant contact, and followed all established guidelines. I was able to meet with both chiefs at Town Hall in the morning, met with Paul Mazzucchelli. I had a call into Frank Saber, spoke to him, and it's just the process, the guidelines. Whenever something happens, we've heard a lot about Ebola in the past, 8 months, 6 months, and it seems to be changing all the time. But most times you say, well, it'll never happen here. Well, there was a little bit of a scare this morning, and these gentlemen, very professional, worked tremendously together with all the officials, and I certainly want to congratulate them, and Paul, and the administrator, and Frank Saber, who's very responsible, as always, in working together. And I think we could probably learn something from it, and hopefully we'll never have to experience that again. But I did want to invite both chiefs in to talk about the process, going forward and all that, and just so that we can allay any fears that people may have at home. So with that, Chief?
We received a 911 call of a woman that they thought would need some assistance. She was out of doors. It was cold this morning. She did not have footwear on, nor did she have outer clothing, heavier clothing, to keep her warm. So people were concerned about her well-being. The officers responded. When they did, they had a conversation with her, and she gave them information that she was feeling ill. She told them that she had come from one of the nations in Africa 9 days ago. The officers have been trained over the past several weeks, as well as all of the dispatches. Deputy Chief Nelson and Officer Robbie Tessino provided training last week for all of our dispatchers to handle these types of calls. Someone that calls in says they have a fever, they have some of the indicia that could fall within that particular illness. So we've given them all of the information that we've received from the State Department of Public Health. The fire chief and I receive almost every day. You receive emails, it seems, from the state, but you get a weekly update from Public Health and MEMA, and the protocols have been developed, and they're in place on how to properly proceed from a law enforcement perspective, from a public safety perspective, as far as medical, helping someone for fire and EMS. And today went, interestingly enough, for people that just received the training, to the letter. They followed the protocols to the letter. Can't say enough good things. The officers that first responded did the right thing. They asked the woman to go back into her apartment. So that isolated her for that time being until the fire chief and his staff could arrive along with the EMS. The fire chief has the protective gear, and from the Bill, they took over. My job then is to deal with perimeter and to maintain it for people's safety, and to work with the fire chief as he directs emergency management. So I know that he was in contact, and he'll explain to you how we have a hotline to State Department of Public Health. We're in contact with them. They have specialists that are there. We can give them all the criteria of what he and his staff and EMS are seeing, and they make an assessment. And they then determine where that person goes, if they're going to a particular hospital, or isolate them here. DEP then would be involved if it was a case where you have that type of situation, to deal with the environment, the actual apartment or home. So it went as designed, and as you know, the relationship between the police department, fire department in this community is second to none.
Right.
So I mean, Billy and I were good friends, and we do our job professionally, and we get along. So it's an issue of doing the right thing, and I appreciate his responsibilities. He appreciates mine. Sometimes we cross over lines, and I'll pull a hose and help him and do things, and he helps me. So it all works out to the benefit of the general public. In this particular case, the net result was that the fire chief and his staff were able to determine that the woman did not have a temperature, as she had first indicated she was feeling ill. So that eliminated that one criteria that you see under the Ebola, the symptomology. Once that was taken care of in dealing with public health, they did what needed to be done. She was taken to the Milford Hospital for unrelated issues. We were able to determine that, in fact, tonight they called me and said, this is a poor soul. She's an American citizen, they tell me, and that she has medical conditions that, affect her day-to-day activities mentally. And as a result, we had the event today. Nothing intentional. And for us, we're able to apply the protocols. And the good thing is, we didn't have the event. So, God forbid if it does occur, then we're ready.
And it gave us the opportunity to put the protocol into operation, and it went textbook. It worked out the way it was supposed to work. It was put together by Deputy Nelson and Robbie Ticino, and it takes pieces from the CDC program, DPH program, and we tooled it to work for Milford. So it worked very well. We didn't have any issues at our end. The hospital did have identified some issues that they want to work on between them and the ambulance company, but the equipment worked the way it was supposed to, the system worked the way it was supposed to, and we were quite pleased. So, like you said, hopefully we don't have to deal with that again, but in the event that it does happen, we were able to determine from her that she stated she had symptoms, but she didn't have any of the symptoms for Ebola.
I just, after I spoke to all of you, I was so reassured, the professionalism that both of you have, the departments, the training, all the equipment that we have, the preparedness. It just, it proved to me that, both of you and the departments are truly outstanding. And if when something happens, you certainly do the right thing, and the training and whatnot, and it's just so reassuring. And so I just wanted to make sure that, the both of you could update, Brian and Bill, and the people listening at home, because when I got home, I had about 19 calls from people who were very, very concerned, heard different things, and so it's good to have the public, receive the right information right from the people who were involved. So great job, and like you said, Chief Tweedy, whether it be the hospital or our end, we're always able to maybe tweak something or do something a little bit better, just in case. Now, hopefully it never happens, but I think that's what, we're all trying to do.
Yeah, this is fairly fluid, and I mean, they've been fine-tuning over the past months, the information you get from CDC, from the state, and as the chief said, we've done the same. Today was just an abundance of caution. There's no room for error. So do the right thing, make sure things go well. We did our best to get information out to the public through various social media channels, through the media. Our goal, though, was to get out accurate information. So it was an issue. We literally stood out here for 35 minutes as we worked with DPH, to work our way through, because we had the fire chief's staff had to check on the woman at different intervals, so over a half hour, 40-minute period, and then transmit that information over the phone through the hotline to the doctors at DPH, so that they could then assess and give us a sense of the best direction. So, I know people, word spreads very quickly, particularly today, social media. People were, tweets were all over the place in an instant. So I respect that, I understand that, but from our end of it, it was an issue of, I can't put information out there until I have it, so when the fire chief told me, here's what DPH said, and here's how we're going to handle this particular patient. Then I was able to put information out. And again, some of it has to be couched in terms of respecting the privacy interests of that individual as well. You know, HIPAA and other protections. So I think today went well. Our ability to reach out to the public. I didn't use the Connect CTY because it's a past incident, and I just thought that I wouldn't get enough information to people that way using that mechanism. I thought it would cause more confusion than anything, so I stayed away from it. I try to put things in writing, get them out there to the public, and that was, I think, the best approach.
Yep. Brian, any questions? No?
No, I mean, it's, I guess coincidental or maybe fortuitous that you had this incident shortly after receiving the training, so, it probably was a nice opportunity to exercise that training, and it's nice to see that protocols and procedures are put forth, based on actual facts and medical science, and not fear or not fiction. It's nice to see the persons, the professionals implementing these protocols, doing so professionally and intelligently, the way you and your staffs did today. So, you're right. People were talking about it fast. Sure. Because I got the call from Rick. I don't know what time it was this morning. As soon as I hung up the phone, I went over to the bank. The woman at the bank is talking to someone on the phone about it. I crossed the street to the post office. The woman behind the counter has a phone with all the information on it. I got back and called Rick. What's going on? Is any changes? So, word spread so fast today. But by all indications, it was handled perfectly. And as the chairman indicated, hopefully you don't have to handle it again.
Right.
But there's no question there's a confidence that if in fact you do, it'll be done well. So thank you very much for your efforts.
Thanks, Bill.
Thank you, Dean. My observation, and it's been my observation for a very long time, that the town of Milford is very fortunate in its first responders and the professionalism and the training that they've received. So the only thing I want to leave you with, I know that there was a period of time where in dealing with this situation, and frankly, whether it be pandemic response, whether it be an automobile accident, whether it be a man with a gun, and police officers have to go in, there's a host of things that you deal with on a day-to-day basis, and I just, I hope that people appreciate first responders and the things that you do every day. This happens to have been all over social media and throughout news, and this is just one example. And so, again, I know there was a period of time where you were treating it as if it was a case that could be spread, and people were in hazmat uniforms, and those people that are in hazmat uniforms go in harm's way, they go into the apartment. And so, if you could, from this board, certainly relay the thank you from their community and from this board, what you do every day, and this is another case of it. Keep training. If there's anything that you need from this board in terms of equipment, materials, training, please let us know, because we're behind you, and we appreciate what you do. Thank you very much.
No question. Thank you for your dedication, professionalism.
Thanks for the opportunity just to update, so that the public has information that's accurate.
And maybe you'll get invited on Meet the Press some Sunday to talk about this, right?
I'll probably be busy because I think half your phone calls were my family because I wasn't calling them back.
Thank you. Thank you, Chief.
Hold on, guys.
Okay, on the warrant, motion by
I'll move.
Brian,
Second.
second by Bill. Any discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Unanimous. The minutes of October 6th.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion, but I'd ask to amend item number 11. I raised the issue about the accident that involved the light pole on South Main Street, but it also struck my building. So if we could just add in there that it struck the light pole and my building.
Okay, second, Bill.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor? That's unanimous. Before we get the invitation to speak, we do have some very special guests in the audience. This is Milford Cub Scouts Pack 67. We have the den leader, Greg Shorn, the assistant den leader, Roy Benson, the den chief, John Giacomuzzi, and the scouts, Joshua Anderson, Walker Aulenti, Thomas Pakyaki, Chris Benson, Lucas Brannigan, Patrick Keegan, Tonio Lomenti, Hunter Partridge, and Joshua Shorn. So, boys, welcome, and, feel free to take notes. Don't ask us any questions, just take notes. But no, if you have any questions, you can call any one of us, and we'll help you with, whatever you're doing in school and if you need special projects information. But thank you for coming, and hopefully you'll find it enjoyable. Okay? Okay, next is invitation to speak. If anyone in the audience would like to address the board? All right. At this time, we'll have the three wonderful ladies of the Historical Commission, Lynn Lovell, Deborah Eastman, and Ann Lamontagne. Want to come up front, please? I know, huh, Lynn?
Yeah, be careful, be careful,
I think
please.
they do that on purpose, you know?
Yeah, they wanted me to play hopscotch.
All right. These wonderful ladies, Lynn Lovell, Ann Lamontagne, and Deborah Eastman, part of the Historical Commission. A couple of weeks ago, or 3 weeks ago, they had a ceremony at Town Library where this wonderful book, Images of America, Milford, was introduced, and it's just unbelievable. I think we all, before we get to the ladies, I think we all know that Milford is very rich in history, from the immigrants who came over a long time ago, working in the granite quarries, the shoe shops, the foundries, hat shops, stone masons, the water company. And I think Milford is also very, very rich throughout the years in education, arts, music, sports, medicine. Dr. Murray, for what he did, Nobel Prize winner for Milford. And I think you've encapsulated it so well. And I think this will be a tremendous resource for past generations, people who remember Milford at that time, and also Milfordians, the kids in the back. And so I think what you've done is truly remarkable and truly special. Because I think in order to be successful in the future, we have to understand and appreciate our past. And I think this book certainly does that. So, it's nice. You ladies look wonderful. You're on TV tonight. So who would like to go first? Ann?
We'll let Deborah.
Deborah. Brian Murray and Bill Buckley, and I'm Dino.
Thank you so much for inviting us here this evening. We've enjoyed our project so much, and we hope that the public, Milford people, will embrace the book. There's a lot to learn from it, and there's also just a lot to enjoy. We'd like to thank someone who's not here that gave us a beautiful foreword to the book, our own Milfordian Lelia Dunbar. Probably some of you know her. She wrote a great foreword, and also we had many other people that helped the project to such an extent that it gave us the freedom to do the research. Mr. Lamontagne did all the technical work on the book as far as the computer-generated photographs, and we had a wonderful Arcadia publisher, editor. We had people from the Historical Commission that were our proofreaders, and we also had contributions of photographs and of historic, fact-checking from Robin Philbin, Pat Fahey, Paul Curran, who am I leaving out? Lots of people. It wasn't just us three,
Sure, yeah.
but it took us 14 months,
Wow.
and we were almost a little sad when it was all over because, it was such a,
Let down.
it was a real all-encompassing, thinking about it all the time project that we never got tired of it, not 1 minute.
No, we had many pictures to work from. But, Gino, I just want you to know that Deborah is the librarian. She's in charge of the Paul Curran curator, and she's not on the Milford Historical
No,
Commission.
no, I'm,
The two of us are,
Yeah.
yeah.
and we had
Who are
our,
the, Who are
our
the other
talk at
members
the
on the
memorial.
committee?
We'll forgive her for that. Maybe we'll get her on the Historical Commission soon.
Who are the other members? I know Ronnie Marino, Pam Fields.
Yes, Pam Fields, Mary Villani, Bob Andriola, and Bob Samiaggio.
Okay.
Yeah, they're the members. But yes, we have a multitude of pictures at Memorial Hall to choose from. And we had many more that we could have put in the book, but we had to narrow it down because the Arcadia Publishing limits how many you can put in. And also, we had a deadline of 1960. They didn't want any pictures later than that because they aren't considered vintage pictures, and it's kind of a vintage book. But we slipped in 3. We have the birthday cake for our bicentennial, we have the blizzard of '78, and we have Catherine Coyne's retirement party, which we thought were important in the book. Yeah.
Maybe someday we can have part 2.
That's what Brian Murray just said, too.
We're willing.
I don't know.
Volume 2 is
I'll let you
in the
try.
works.
We can take a few months off and then start on that, okay? Lynn?
Well, I don't really have too much to add, except that we did have a really good time doing it. We came out friends, we fought, and we came out friends from the whole thing, and Roger made it through with our pictures. I can't tell you how much that man did. And the quality of our pictures in the book are just unbelievable because of what he did. But it was a lot of fun.
Sure.
We really had a lot of fun, learned a lot. I had a phone call just the other night from this girl, and she was all excited. She opened up the book, and she was Joyce Blackler. She's now Joyce Beard. And she found her picture in there. And she was so excited because she found her picture in there, you know. So it's been a lot of fun. And we learned a lot. You know, we think we know our history, and then when you begin to dig, you find something, oh, I didn't know that. So it's been fun. And I see Mr. Buckley, he's examining it. Have you got your copy yet?
I haven't.
Because we have, I'm not selling them, but we have extra with us tonight if you're looking for one.
That'd be great.
Whatever they cost, we'll charge him double, all right? So you can-
Okay, yours was 25, his is 50.
No, they are selling for 20, and they're available at Memorial Hall on Thursdays from 1 to 4.
And the historical,
Also at the library, you can purchase.
sure, and the Historical Commission does a wonderful job. I think when I go places, I'm always speaking to people, and they're always saying, up at the Historical Commission, they call and they obtain information. They're always very helpful, and they do a tremendous job for the town. And I think you're open every Saturday or Sunday?
Thursday.
Just Thursdays, 1 to
Thursday.
4.
And we open on Veterans Day, we're open Memorial Day. But I also want to say thank you to you people and to the town people, because we as a historical commission with our museum are extremely lucky in having a place to have our museum. Most towns, they have to struggle to have theirs, and you allow us to really just concentrate on the museum.
In that
And
green
so I,
building that
I
was
know.
yeah,
refurbished.
and I thank you for it, because
It's a jewel.
most towns do not have this luxury.
Yeah, we are very fortunate.
It's a true luxury.
And the book has been well received. As soon as Barnes and Noble got them in, they were sold out. They had to reorder.
Wow, sure. But no, I wanted to have you come in to be acknowledged for this great thing that you've done for the town, the history. And Milford's a special place, and I think this fits very nicely in that for, the young people in the back of the room and people who want to maybe go back and look at those pictures and, fond memories of the past, and I think that's what, makes everything worthwhile. But
Well,
you've done
thank
a
you very
wonderful
much for
job,
inviting
and,
us.
Thank you for inviting
We'll
us.
go to the
Yeah.
board members if they have any comments or questions. Brian?
Yeah, no, thank you, too.
Yeah, you're
Welcome for the first stop on your worldwide book tour. You had a great signing, that was just such an enjoyable day. I really had a nice time there.
We lucked out there was no football game that day.
Yeah, no, you had a nice crowd there, and it was a lot of fun. It was nice to see the books moving. And I told you outside, I've got a few of them. They make great gifts. They really do. I gave
Yes.
one to my mother right away. I've got one for my sister, and it's a great gift to give to people. Around the holidays. When I went through it, and I mentioned it to you out in the hallway, and you explained why you couldn't go any farther. But I kind of wish there were more pictures of the late '60s, early '70s, what Milford was like when I was growing up. You did have that one shot of the old reference room, the library at
Yes.
Memorial Hall. I mean, that brought back 7th grade Stacy School research papers when everybody went into that room and fought to get to the Encyclopedia Britannica,
Yes.
and that's how you did your research.
What, no Google?
No, there
Google.
wasn't, there was,
No.
that's what it was, you
And you
know?
were quiet.
Yeah.
And you had to be quiet.
Well, you did, yeah, but,
Yeah.
I mean, and that, you know, that picture, I guess, was 1960, so I was probably there late 60s. It looked exactly the same when I was there, you know?
Yes.
So it just brought back such great memories. You know, the picture that you had of Main Street with the helicopter, the fair.
Oh, yeah.
You could see the Susan sign, you know, exactly, you know, I know exactly where those spots were from growing up. Ted's Diner, I mean, you can go on and on. So it's just a wonderful book. And I understand how difficult something like this is to put together. Just going through Robin Philbin's collection alone, although meticulously kept,
Yes.
because I have seen his collection, his house. He is a tremendous record keeper. Paul, I don't know, he must have, I don't know that Paul kept his records like that. You know, that was,
We have his archives at the library now, and I am cataloging them.
Good.
and Archiving them, and they're not in as bad sorts as you might think.
okay. Because I remember they were at his house, and it was, you know, all over the place.
Right,
But
he
had some,
could find out where they were.
Yes,
I mean,
yes.
but he kept meticulous records of every piece
Yeah.
of correspondence he ever
yes,
had.
yes.
And
So-
that's a book in itself in the future, too.
Absolutely.
Amazing, sure.
Absolutely, some real treasured items, you know, so you tapped into two key people that, you know, just really, you know, have the history of Milford, and along with the resources that you have at the Historical Commission. And it's so important, because Milford is very rich in history. When you look at the pink granite, you know, at the Boston Public Library, you know, the monuments in Washington, I mean, that's tremendous, you know, it really is. And, you know, the thing about history, I think, with each passing generation, we lose a little bit more. You know, I know when my father passed, you know, there's so many stories and so much history that was gone. And that happens more and more. But it's things like this that really keep the story alive, and I think it's so very important. So, you know, as difficult as it may be, I second the chairman, and I wholeheartedly recommend that you proceed with Volume 2, because I know there's a lot more to tell.
Yes, yeah.
And you did such a tremendous job. You really did. You really did.
Thank
You
you.
really
It
should be
was-
proud of
it was
yourself.
fun.
Thank you
Yeah,
very much.
so
Yeah,
I think you did a great job for the town.
Thanks, Mike.
You're hitting on our book signing. That was really a lot of fun. We had so many people there, but
That
the
was a great
people
day.
came, and we had envisioned that they would come in and get their book signed and be gone. And that's not what happened. Oh, my goodness, I haven't seen you for years. Where have you been? And people stayed. People stood around for 2 hours and visited with each
Sure.
other, seeing each other. And it was really fun to watch these people reminisce.
It
And,
was a
you know,
nice time. I had a very
oh,
nice time.
everybody had a
Yeah.
good time.
Yeah, that's
They-
good.
Nobody left.
No?
I want to say thank you. You know, with my grandson being fifth generation Milfordian, and going through the book, you can see relatives. You know, you've captured so much of what the essence of Milford is. You know, from old historical buildings, and some of the events, and some of the not so great events. I mean, you look at some of the catastrophe in terms of fire, or hurricane, or blizzard, and but you know, throughout that time, Milford has stood tall, and I think you captured it when just looking through the pictures gives you goosebumps. So I appreciate, personally, I appreciate it, and I know that the people of Milford appreciate your hard work. Can just imagine what the work is, what was to do this, but thank you again
You're
so
welcome.
much for your hard work.
Thank you.
I mean, just looking at these pages real quickly, Joe Rosenfeld, Rosenfeld Concrete,
Oh, I left mine with the other chair.
Gerard Sweeney,
Yes.
great teacher at Milford High School.
Yeah.
He gave me a C that year. I never forget that.
He was always in charge of the yearbook,
And you're
too.
lucky you got that.
Those are the things that suddenly pop into your mind.
And John Davern, and just a picture.
Did you see the picture of Dave Davern and his brother Tom
Yes.
on
On
the
the
on
horse.
little
Great,
pony?
Tony.
Yeah.
Yeah,
was
it
great.
a good one, too.
That was
Yeah.
great.
We had fun.
Yeah,
Sure.
we did, yeah.
And that's what it's all about.
So we're looking forward to the next version.
Yeah, part two.
Alright.
So we'll probably have you, well, maybe.
Take a week off.
That's right.
We need a month, we need 2 years.
All right, thank you so much, okay?
Thank you very much.
Thank you, thank you.
Great job. Lynn, watch out for the booby traps there.
Big camp.
Got you.
No.
Okay. All right, moving along, now we have the town treasurer, Irene. Irene will be talking to us about health insurance premium holiday recommendation. This is a nice thing that we're gonna be able to be doing for our employees. Irene?
Yes, thank you. During the 2013 audit, it was identified that we had an old claims trust fund that we were ready to review to see if all the claims have been paid and if we could release those funds. After vetting it with Kelly, the assistant treasurer who handles the majority of our health insurance for the town, we were able to identify that we could release these funds at this time. It's not necessarily found money. That's often a perception that this money was hidden somewhere. This funds were derived when we were self-insured as a town, which means we were claim-based. So when people paid into their health insurance each month, it went into this health claims insurance trust fund. Now we're premium-based, so this claims trust fund is no longer needed. Because the employees, retirees, and employer, being the town of Milford, have paid into this account, per Mass General Law, we need to divvy the funds the same way. It's not something that can just be transferred into the general fund. Therefore, I'm recommending to the board, and it does require board action, that we have a health insurance premium holiday beginning January 1st, 2015, for a total of 2 months, going until February 28th, 2015. What that means is during that time period, employees won't be paying premiums into the health insurance trust fund, nor will the town. It's key to note on employees' paychecks, the deduction won't show, but that doesn't mean their coverage is canceled. It just simply means we're not deducting it from their paycheck. So I did provide a few questions and answers that we would provide to employees as we go through the process, so that they understand, here's some of the changes you may see, and here's some possible answers to your questions. As we go through the process, if we get additional questions from employees, we'll add those to the question and answer sheet so that we make sure we get as much information out as possible. So this, if you approve, will apply to town active employees, school active employees, and our retiree base that are already participating in health insurance. So this isn't someone gets a letter and signs up for free health insurance tomorrow. It's our existing base that's already participating in health insurance will enjoy a 2-month premium holiday.
Hey, that's a nice Christmas bonus, huh?
Yes, it is.
And Irene, which chart are we looking at as far as,
There's several charts because this is how the employees pay into the health insurance. Some employees work 52 weeks, so therefore their premium is based upon a 52-week pay period. Some elect for 40-week. That's why you're going to see different charts.
okay.
For the town, school is biweekly, so they have the choice of being paid 26 weeks or 20 weeks. That's why you see a difference for the school group because their deductions are different. Not the total premium dollar amount, but how often they pay. And then the retirees are paid once a month. So the retirees would enjoy 2 cycles or 2 months.
Okay. Brian, any questions?
Yeah, no, I mean, this is something that, we had talked about for the last few months anyway. But this also applies to the employer contribution during this time period as well, correct?
Correct.
Okay,
Yes.
yeah, so can you talk about that a little bit? So that's, in essence, going to be a savings, and did result in a savings for the health insurance premium for this fiscal year.
For this fiscal year. So in the general fund budget, we did vote a budget for this year, not even assuming this premium holiday would apply. During this time period, you're not going to be transferring the expenditure amount for health insurance out of the general fund appropriation into the claims trust fund. So whatever we don't expend for those 2 months out of the general fund portion will remain in the general fund. At the close of the fiscal year, that would be included in that free cash calculation. And so we'd be available to appropriate it next year once it's certified.
And that would be something less than the 1.5, correct? Because the 1.5
Correct.
covers the employer and the employee.
Exactly.
Okay, all right.
I believe we calculated about 67%,
Okay.
because you have various groups paying different amounts.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, so I mean, you know, it's a nice plan to go forward and, you know, kind of clean up these funds, get them off the book, and apply them in a meaningful basis for both the benefit of the town and the employee.
Yeah, thanks. Bill?
Yeah, this is good. The fact that this has been paid for by both the community and the employees allows you that benefit. It's one of those nice things you get to do coming in.
Exactly. Positive recommendation tonight.
Yeah, these are great recommendations. So that falls to free cash, and that's inherently a good thing, both for next year, as we see other rates going up. We just were notified.
Yes, the retiree's going up on January 1st.
Also, just utilities, electric going up 37%, you know, just a whole host of costs going up. This is a great thing for the town and its taxpayers and also the employees. So, yeah, very enthusiastic and ready to support it and make a motion to support the employee holiday as stated by in the memo from
Yep.
Town Treasurer.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? And we could probably do this once a year, at least. What do you think?
That would be nice.
Any other discussion? If not, all in favor? Opposed? Unanimous.
Thank you so
Irene.
much.
Thank you.
Nice job explaining it. Thank you.
All right, we're going to move up Priscilla Hogan. Priscilla Hogan was asked by Selectman Murray about the small commercial exemption. So she has a report for us, and she will be talking about it at this time. Hi, Priscilla.
Hi.
Oh, before you go on, everyone knows that Priscilla will be retiring soon. And every time I see Priscilla, I tell her, why don't you stay another year, and I don't think it's
Sure, they
working.
did that once.
So,
I did that once, right? No, it's time.
She's been a tremendous assessor.
Thank you.
And I know
It's
you
been a
work so
pleasure
well
working
with the
you.
assessors, but what you've done for us, all the questions, that when we have the tax classification hearing, is just a wealth of information and knowledge, and certainly appreciate everything that you've done.
Thank you
for
very
us.
much. It has been a pleasure working in Milford. Milford's been very good to me.
Wow, it's our
I have
pleasure
to
to
say,
have
it
you.
feels like my own hometown, so it's been a lot. It's been wonderful. I did give you a report. Brian had questioned about the small business exemption, which always comes up during the classification hearing. And I did put this report together for you so that we could maybe answer any questions before the classification hearing, so that we could know what's coming and how I could present the next hearing, because it would make a difference in the rates. So the report that I have given you, I think the major pieces are, I received a listing from the unemployment department. It's a confidential list, and it gives me all the businesses in town that have less than 10 employees on this list. There were 294 small businesses on the list that I received. Now, to qualify for the exemption, the property has to have a value under $1 million. Everybody at the property has to qualify. So if you're in a little strip mall, and I'm going to just pick one, Marty's Kitchen, for example. If they were a small business and the one next door to them had more than 10 employees, all of a sudden Marty's doesn't get an exemption. Everybody within that complex has to qualify. So as I went through the whole list, and I drove by all the properties because I had to see who's still there, who is not there, are they in a complex where everybody qualifies, where they don't qualify? Out of the 294 small businesses, 48 qualify. And when you look at that, I'm going to give an example of an accountant, for example, that might have a commercial condo up on Asylum Street. He's in his own spot, he qualifies, he, she, and that's great. But you have the exact same business in a building such as where Dino is, where there's multiple business within the building, and every single business has to qualify for that accountant to get it. So one accountant's over in this building and receives the exemption, one accountant's in this building and does not. It's very unequitable and unfair, in my opinion, when you're trying to work with all the small businesses and who you're trying to help. when I went through the list, I went into the corporation's book, I'm trying to see, are these local people, are they out-of-town people, are they franchises, are they, and I was looking at all that information. I believe half of the group was not owned by people from town. 19, I believe, were, and there was 8 that I couldn't find. The one thing that does not come on the list are sole proprietors. Those people would come, if you were to adopt the exemption, they would have to apply for it, and then we would have to do some research on the number of employees over the quarters, over the year, and determine if they qualified. So I think it was important to get this information out for any of the small businesses that wonder why we don't adopt it or why we should adopt it, that the inequities that happen really don't help the people I think that you're trying to help when you give that exemption. And it does, the other piece that I wanted to say is that exemption goes to the property owner. It doesn't necessarily go to the business. If the business is not the property owner, the property owner doesn't necessarily have to pass that exemption on to the business. They might just take it themselves. So there's very few communities that adopt it. I believe last year I presented 10, I think. I called a couple of them as I was doing this. They say it's a lot of paperwork, it's a lot of work for what little people gain from it. And the other businesses, when you give the exemption to the small business, the rest of the businesses have to pick that cost up. That's the other piece to it as well. It does not go to your residential property tax holders. It goes to the other commercial property tax holders. So I didn't know if you would have questions. I wanted to be here in case you did, if I could clear anything up for you so that when we do present it at the classification period there, the business people understand what your decision is.
Brian?
Yeah, no, thank you, Priscilla, for putting this together. And, you know, as we spoke, it's really sort of an update of what you had done periodically in the past. You know, I know we've looked at this, at least since I've been on the board, a couple of times. So, you know, I thought it was important to get a better handle on it because the way the economy has been the last few years, it is difficult for small businesses. And I wanted to see if there is an opportunity there to try to help out some small businesses from a tax perspective. I had a couple of questions, though, on your report, and maybe I just was not following it, because you list on page 2 that there's 294 parcels, okay? So then in the next paragraph, there's 429 properties. What's the difference between those two numbers?
The 294 parcels are the ones that are listed as small businesses on the unemployment listing.
Okay,
The total number of commercial properties in town is the 429.
okay. And then, okay, so then you get to the 276, that's from the 429
Right.
that have the $1 million value or less.
And I remove vacant land as well.
Okay.
Yes.
All right, so just to do your kind of a quick analysis to see what makes sense, you focused on median value.
Right.
Which is good, so it's roughly 255,000. And then you give what the tax bill would be without doing this.
Right.
And then if the exemption were adopted, but the property did not qualify, that property owner would have an increase, small increase in taxes, about $18.
Right.
And then the property that did qualify would get a savings, again, on this median value of about $740.
Right.
That's, okay, so I
Right.
read that correctly?
Yes.
Okay. And you think that would, at this point anyway, kind of a ballpark idea, affect perhaps 48 parcels?
Right.
Yeah.
The only ones that I wouldn't know about are the sole proprietors.
Yeah, and then I read the informational directive, I guess from the DOR, I'm not sure.
Yes.
But it looked as though this talked about making eligibility for sole proprietors and partnerships. So does that mean that corporations are not eligible, or were corporations already eligible and this was a tag-along.
Corporations are not eligible.
Okay.
It's really not, well, if it's a small business corporation, it would be. If it's under 10 employees,
Okay.
yes, it would.
Because this talking about the eligibility of sole proprietor and partnership.
Those are the ones that are not on the list.
Okay,
The sole proprietors have to come forward and let us know who they are. They're gonna have
Okay.
to file an abatement to get the exemption. And I think that's what is coming in that particular paragraph. Those people are not accounted for in the list that's given to me.
okay. So corporations would be. The mere fact that it's a corporation
Right.
in and of itself does not qualify it or disqualify it. It still has to meet the
The other criteria.
the other criteria that you have.
Right.
Yeah, and you know, as Dino said, you've been an assessor for, quite some time, and you certainly have a lot of experience, and I certainly value your opinion. I mean, you know what the intent is, to try to really give some meaningful relief to a small business owner. Do you think this does that?
I don't think it's trying to meet what one of the things we talked about is Main Street, the small businesses may be on Main Street, but a lot of them are in a building where a business does not comply, because I did a whole walk down Main Street and looked at every single one of those properties. So, no, some of the places that I looked at, that do qualify, and it is not a public record, but they are not the types of businesses I believe that you're trying to help. And that's one of the things that I looked at when I gave this package to you. I know your intent, and the intent is very good, and out of 294 small businesses that have 10 or less employees, if 48 qualify and say 10 of those aren't even what you're intending to qualify, I'm not sure you're helping the people you want to be helping.
Okay.
Fairly.
That-
I mean,
yeah.
you're getting a few, certainly, but overall, it's inequitable. Again, you've got one attorney in a condo, commercial condo, and one attorney in a building that has a couple of other businesses.
Right.
This one gets it, this one doesn't, and I don't know how you would feel that that's fair and equitable
Sure.
to everybody.
The
Because
information-
now the other one that doesn't, I'm sorry,
No,
the
the
one that
informa-
doesn't qualify is gonna pick up the cost of this one getting a
Right,
break.
right,
So
Right,
you're kind of putting a little heavier load on somebody that's still a small business.
yeah.
And
Okay.
I don't think that's the intent.
But the information is valuable in case in
The
the future.
information is,
other
I
boards
think it's
wanna-
always good to look at things
Sure.
again, because, things change, and you don't know, did the law change somewhere? Did they clean it up a little bit? I mean, I talked to the chief of the Law Division at Department of Revenue, who thinks this piece of legislation is not a very good piece of legislation for any community, actually, just because of the way it's written. But you don't know, things change, laws get changed on a regular basis. I follow them, I was on the legislative committee for the assessors, so it's good to relook at things and see what's happened, so. I
Well,
think it's a good
and we've said this before at the tax classification hearings, the mere fact that 10 communities out of 351 across the state, that in and of itself, I think, says something.
Right.
Although, I looked at the list, Bellingham is on there, Rentham, but, that's a very, very small percentage statewide, so, I mean, if it was that great, more people would be doing it.
I agree.
That's all I have on
Okay.
that, Mr.
Thank you.
Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I do think it's worthwhile to do this review periodically. You know, I agree. I echo your concern about inequity. There are landlords that would pick up the tax break and wouldn't necessarily be passed on to the business. Not to mention the fact that, well, possibly 48, and I don't know that, I know that number is in flux, might have some tax reduction. We shift the burden to 421 businesses whose taxes are going to go up to adjust for that.
Right.
And while it's a great target for small businesses, I agree with you on the legislation. I think it could be crafted in such a way that we might be able to better benefit the smallest businesses, whether they be renters or not. So I appreciate your review. I want to echo the comments that Dino had made about your time here. I know you're not leaving tomorrow, but it's been a pleasure working with you. And your information is always crisp, clear, and well thought out, and I appreciate the time that you put in and the benefit that Milford's received with you being here.
Thank you. Again, it's been a pleasure for me.
It's been our pleasure. And we'll say the same words in a couple of weeks when you come in. And we'll see you,
I look forward to it.
and Priscilla, we'll see you tomorrow on the senior citizen
Yes,
tax relief
absolutely.
recommendations.
Yes,
Okay,
very good.
thank you so much.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Priscilla.
Thanks, Priscilla. Yeah, well, boys, wake up for a second. I know half of you are sleeping. We're going to be talking about traffic pretty soon, and you'll all be asleep when that's done, so.
Except the way Bonnie does it, the way she presents it. Dave,
Scotty,
I'll leave now.
Larry,
Thank
Chief,
you.
With that.
all right, thank you.
Yeah. I thought you were talking to me there for a minute.
Yeah. Yeah, have a seat. guys. Well, I think they were leaving anyway.
I guess so.
Maybe we should slide this back a little. Huh?
No,
Or should we just?
we'll try something better.
No, I
so
mean-
can I hope, whatever. But maybe John, whoever. Okay, for introduction, we have the police chief, Ronnie Reese, our very qualified and professional engineer, Scotty Crisafulli, our highway surveyor, and Larry Duncan. This is something that I've been talking to the administrator and these gentlemen and ladies for about 3 or 4 months about traffic. We all know that traffic is a concern, and that we have to try to do something, whether it be for a short-term basis, something that doesn't take too long to accomplish. And I think we all know that these recommendations, very comprehensive report, and you'll see the reports from Varney and all the professionals here tonight as we try to tackle concerns on South Main Street, Route 85, 16, 109, and 16. So I think some things that we can do probably readily, and those other things require 2 or 3 years applying for grants and all that. Back a couple of months ago, I had sent Varney and the chief some ideas just to look at, as far as, I'm not a traffic engineer, but I do travel in that area all the time, back and forth to work, and I've seen things. Bugaboo, the left-hand turn, exiting Coles, no left-hand turn. And the reason why I think we place signs there is because when someone's trying to cross over 4 lanes, that's when the accident occurs. And some bad accidents, and I think from the chief's statistics in the past, probably like 125 accidents over the past 2 or 3 years at that location. I've witnessed it myself, where people come out of Coles, they go left, and they end up in the cemetery, and some of those accidents are pretty bad. And some of those accidents, cars even come onto the building, come onto the parking lot on 109, on 100 Medway Road, so that's quite a jump. So things like that. We put the signs there, and I think people do abuse it, but I think it's reduced some of the accidents, which are very severe at times. The bike trail, I think we all know the bike trail, a wonderful thing with the light near Friendlies, but we have to try to do something so if someone doesn't get caught at the last minute, we have to stop because of the blinking light. There was an accident there about a month ago, and we received the police report, very significant accident. And the Cedar Street, the Gibbs Station, I think, once again, besides grant, we're gonna have to spend some money to do something that makes change, that mitigates the situation. That has to be looked at going forward. Turning lanes, if we can acquire that land, I think that would be a significant addition to what we're trying to do to increase the flow of traffic and also reduce the accidents and whatnot. Haywood Street, the professionals in this building came up with recommendations. We put in, it's blocked out, whatever the proper terminology is, and that seems to have worked. I think it's worked. I think it's improved the flow of traffic. People can make left-hand turns. People don't get stuck in the middle. So I think it's these types of things that we have to try to look at this. This is a tough nut, but I think if we begin now and trying to implement some of the things that we can, apply for grants, we can continue to work with town council on that piece of property, and make whatever changes we feel would be beneficial. The board members have ideas, alternatives, and those are the types of things. And we start tonight. So this is like a blueprint to try to improve the traffic flow in those areas that I mentioned. And I know all the work that Larry has done, Scotty, there'll be some things that maybe you can implement that help out the situation. You're always available to help out. Anytime we call you, you're right there. And of course, the police chief and our town engineer. So with that, Bonnie, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, Dino. The issue of traffic is obviously a big one for Milford. The board, myself, Larry, Scott, and the chief, we've heard from many, many residents about specific intersections and about specific problem areas in town. And so one of the reasons we wanted to do this presentation was to let people know that we hear that and we're working on it. Some of this work will have to be done in conjunction with the state, and so as we know, the state does not move incredibly fast. Some of these projects are still years out, but we are getting the ball rolling, and we're looking at what our options are and what we can do. And that includes options for funding, to get money from the state or from other sources so that it does not become a burden on the town, and to also look forward in terms of what the traffic will look like in the future and making improvements to improve safety as well. So as Dino said, there were several intersections. Route 16 and Route 109, anyone who travels through that intersection knows that it's a bottleneck. There are two issues there. There are ADA issues, American with Disabilities Act, and the traffic flow issues. And I'll talk about that in a second. Route 109 in Beaver Street, this intersection, and not just the intersection itself, but actually all the way up Route 109 past the Kohl's Plaza, has a high rate of accidents. So we're looking at what we can do to improve the safety in that area. Route 140 and South Main Street is another location in town where there are a lot of accidents, and we're working with the state on looking at improvements there to increase the safety. Route 16 and Route 85, we have been looking at options for increasing the intersection capacity so that it will flow better, and that also cars taking left-hand turns onto the side streets don't back up all the traffic on Route 16. And then, as Dino said, there were miscellaneous sign issues. Some of them had to do with safety, some had to do with line of sight, and we'll talk about those as well. So Route 16 and Route 109, this is, I think everybody knows this intersection in Milford. The issues here are the ADA issues as well as backing up both Route 16 and Route 109 at this intersection. We received a complaint several months ago from a resident about the ADA issues. You can see in the pictures, the picture at the top left, there are no detectable panels on the sidewalk. The slope of the sidewalk is not correct. It doesn't meet ADA standards. The picture in the bottom, you can see that there's a steep drop-off between the area that's the sidewalk and the area that's the parking lot. And there are obstructions at the corner also that would impede somebody who is in a wheelchair. And then in the top right corner, the crosswalk is actually in the street. There is no protection there at the end of the island for somebody going across. So these are the issues that we discussed with the state. And Mass DOT has a division that deals specifically with ADA issues, and they have put together a plan of improvements for this intersection. It will be paid for, designed, and constructed by Mass DOT, and they're hoping to start very soon, within the next couple of months, to make these improvements, to make this safer for pedestrians and people with disabilities. The other issue with the traffic flow, there are some changes that could be made here, both on the 109 side and the Route 16 side, but it's going to be pretty much a major renovation of both the intersection and all the signals as well. We have talked to the state, and we received a letter of just a couple of weeks ago saying that we are eligible for $2.7 million in federal funding to redo this intersection. So I hunted down the people at the state and asked them what exactly does that mean. And what that means is we are, they've determined that that is how much money they think it will take to fix the intersection, and we're eligible to apply for funding. The earliest that we would probably get put on a funding list would be about 2019 for this intersection. So it's about 5 years away. But we want people to know that, it's out there and we're pursuing it, and please be patient, and we'll do whatever we can to try to secure those funds. The state, again, will design and construct this project and pay for it. So we will be working with them to try to advance that. Route 109 in Beaver Street and that strip down 109 past the shopping malls is a very high crash location. Each one of the numbers on this accident diagram indicates a motor vehicle accident. And so you can see that the majority of the accidents are people coming out of the Kmart shopping plaza or out of the McDonald's, more so than in the intersection itself. The intersection has issues as well, but there are a lot of accidents due to people turning left out of the businesses and the shopping plazas and not seeing oncoming traffic. So we have talked to this Central Transportation Planning staff and the MPO, which is the regional planning organization, and they put together an alternatives analysis to reduce accidents at this intersection. What they did was they came up with 5 different alternatives to change the configuration of the roadway, the signals, the lanes, to make this safer. I won't go into all 5, but I'd like to just present 2 that are the most probable. This is the first one. I'd like to note that the McDonald's parcel in the lower central part of this picture has already been approved by the planning board for site design that would allow this type of entrance out onto Beaver Street. It would be, right now Beaver Street is one way, so it would be an in from Beaver Street or out to go out into the intersection. That's the way it's been approved now with the planning board, and that is more likely to happen sooner than this transportation improvement project would happen. The major change here is there's a hard divider in Route 109 across from the exit from the Kmart shopping plaza that would prevent people from turning left. It also pushes people coming out of McDonald's right onto Route 109. And then there's the addition of a so-called suicide lane also for turning vehicles to make it a little safer for people turning.
Vaughn, that's that yellow.
The solid yellow line is the hard divider, and
It's where you can make both the left and right.
right, and in the sort of the center, very, very left of the picture, you can see there's a dashed yellow line with white arrows.
Geez, couldn't they come up with a better name than the suicide lane?
They probably do have a better name, but that's what everybody calls
Who
them.
wants to drive in that lane?
That's kind of how they work.
Jeez.
It's the
What
chicken
it
lane
means,
then. We'll
if-
call
if
it the
both-
chicken lane.
If both directions go for it at the same time,
Sometimes
there's
you-
no chance of avoiding an accident.
So this is one option. This is actually the option that is preferred, based on the analysis that they did, and that would be to put a roundabout in to where the intersection is now. The roundabout would eliminate the lights, which are not in sync with the state-controlled lights coming off 495.
That's for sure.
So it would help with the flow of traffic from that, or not flow of traffic that happens from those light cycles. Beaver Street will become two ways. This one does not show an entrance off of Beaver Street into the McDonald's, but we would have to work with them to figure out how to make that happen, because that would be pretty important. This would force traffic coming out of McDonald's and the shopping plazas to take lefts. If somebody wanted to reverse direction, all they'd have to do is go down to the Rotary and get themselves turned around. So this is being looked at seriously by the state for this particular intersection, but there's still a lot of work left to be done.
Vaughn, can I ask a question?
Sure.
With these type of, I like that roundabout instead of a rotary. That type, I think a few years ago, we were talking about near Wendy's, maybe having some kind of a roundabout. So are these things, I mean, scientifically, are these things generally safe, and are people satisfied with those types of things? Roundabouts? Instead of lights?
It has to be the right location. I mean, every application works in some places and doesn't work in other places. But they feel that it will work pretty well here to keep traffic moving.
They find that
Chief.
it's a traffic calming, so the speeds reduce, so you less have to have a collision. Yet, traffic is always moving because you don't have lights that are trying to control one side of an intersection or the other. So, it's no different than a rotary. Roundabout is simply a different term. So you work your way up, but traffic is always moving through the intersection.
See at the Cape frequently, right over the bridge, right? See use of the Rotary as a classic place, right? High volume of traffic, moving.
Huge volume, and you're still moving.
So Chief, as far as your field of discipline and experience, and something like that, you could see that working out well?
Yes, and I think what it does is, in coming up to the roundabout, you have to slow down.
Yeah.
You have the yields and the right ways, and people tend to. The catch here, as Bonnie touched on, is you're eliminating a number of those left-hand turns. Most of the collisions on 109
Yeah.
are from the exchange,
Yeah.
195 exchange, not even as far down as Birch Street, and the average over the 3-year period, which I gave you, was one a week. So there's a significant number of crashes, but very much like you expressed, when you mentioned Wendy's, most of those are turning crashes. So a person comes out, they cross the one lane, the car in the other lane doesn't see them.
Yeah.
You now have, a T-bone accident or an angled accident. And that's where most of those crashes, when you saw that diagram occur, they're not up in the intersection for the most part.
And just, if
Yeah.
I might, Chief, I can only imagine the number of vehicles that we would take directly off 495, put up Beaver Street, no longer go down in front of Coles, in front of St. Mary's Cemetery, that now would be
All the way down
redirected
to
to
109
Bayonne.
and 16. I
Right.
mean, when we talk about bypass road and the rest of it.
That's a bypass.
You're going to move a number of vehicles that already go that direction. They get on a Birch Street, they
Go
take
to
the left
Birch.
there. But I think you're gonna pull some of your congestion off of Main Street as well. I mean, that intersection, if you look at the reports, it's handling 25,000 cars a day.
Wow.
That's a lot of vehicles.
And this report is in your packet, as well as the report on the previous intersection at Route 16 and Route 109.
Yeah, this has been something that, frankly, I remember bringing up my first year as selectman 9 years ago, trying to take that traffic off of 109, take it up to Beaver, and there were always the restrictions with the federal government, 495.
So Vaughn, you said this is being looked at along with the other one?
This is being looked at. So again, this solution is a little ways away.
Sure.
But we're definitely looking at it.
And while they continue to look at it, we can provide input, recommendations, advice on what they're doing or not really.
We've been working with the
Yeah.
engineers, through Larry and Vonnie, and you'll see in the reports,
Yes.
the data they relied upon, they went to the registry and pulled data from there, but we did pull every crash report that we had for that area for, what was it, 3 years, Larry?
3 to 5.
3 or 5 years. We gave them every crash report, and that's where you get the diagram showing the angles of the crashes, because their engineer sat down and diagrammed that out.
Yeah, good, okay.
All right, this is Route 140 and South Main Street. This intersection is also being looked at by the Regional Planning Agency. We started looking at this intersection about a year and a half ago, actually. And this is a crash diagram for this intersection, and you can see that there's a lot going on in this intersection.
To say the least.
But a lot of it is traffic trying to merge, coming out of the shopping plaza, traffic trying to take left-hand turns. This is a very complex intersection with a lot going on. And so at this point in time, the recommendations are to really focus on improving pedestrian access. Right now is horrible. Improving pedestrian access, improving safety with the crosswalks and sidewalks, changing some of the turn lanes to designated left turn or right turn only lanes, and also aligning the lanes. So where you see on 140 there, the lane going straight up 140 north, it doesn't really line up with the lane on the other side. So changing the striping such that it does line up better. So the aerial is the existing condition, and the sketch is a sketch that Larry did of what it might look like when we're done restriping it.
You just need to rotate it 90 degrees. North on the sketch is that way, north on the
All
aerial
right.
is up.
Yep.
Nice job, Larry. We don't have any suicide lane there, right?
The
No
whole, that's
suicide
the
lane.
whole
the whole intersection is, yes.
Suicide intersection.
Exactly.
It just shows we're not very good at turning.
So this is another one that's not funded yet, but the state is definitely looking at it, and we know that it's a high priority. Route 16 and Route 85. I don't have anything in here for the intersection up by the hospital, Route 16 and 140, because that particular project is underway. We're at about 25% design right now. It's not on the tip yet for funding. We don't have a year when it will actually be funded, but it's in line, and once our design is progressed a little bit further to maybe 50% or so, then the state will actually start looking at when they're going to put that on the list. But we're actively working on redesigning that intersection right now.
What's it take to get it to the 50%?
What do you think, Scott?
25%.
Just submitted a 25%.
Yeah,
today,
we
I
just
think.
finished
No,
our
but is
20
it 72 people and 6 months, or trying to figure where the labor,
More than 6 months,
trying to see
actually.
what,
Probably another,
Kinda
yeah,
help.
probably another
No.
6 months.
Yeah, at least, if not a year.
We it's being done by a consulting firm that
Let me-
was hired by
Let me-
the Regional Planning Agency.
let me ask it differently. How can we help to accelerate that? Because we would hold up, until we get to the 50% level, we would be holding up our own ability to get grants or to get on the tip.
Well,
So how can we help?
even to get it on a tip, they're not talking till, what, 2017 or 2018?
17 would be the earliest,
Yeah.
yeah.
So there's,
So the answer to the question is we're pushing our consultants very hard to get to that point. We turned around their 25% review in about a week and said, keep going.
and you think
And-
for them to get to the 50%, it's another 6 months?
It's probably about another 6 months, though. There's quite a bit of work to do, and that particular intersection includes some takings as well.
Right, that's where we're at now, actually,
Yeah.
the land takings.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah, good question, though. I mean, whatever we can do to push it, if you feel that everything is being done. If that changes, then do whatever has to be done.
And the reason why I was thinking about how we could work with our legislators, and the first thing that they'd say is, you need to get further along
Yeah.
before that we can get on a list. Okay, thank you.
Right. This is Route 16 and Route 85. I did not have to wait very long to take a picture of a large truck going through this intersection, because probably hundreds go through every day. But you can see that when a large truck either turns off of Cedar Street onto 16 or from 16 onto Cedar Street, it totally blocks the entire intersection. And sometimes for 2 or 3 light cycles too, so that really backs traffic up in all directions. The intersection is just too narrow for the type of traffic that it serves, and so what we're proposing is to open up the intersection, make the turning radiuses wider. This is something that the town is looking at on our own at the moment. We haven't approached the state about this intersection. It is something that we've got to make some decisions internally as to how we want to proceed with this before we go to the state. But this is another sketch that Larry put together that shows increasing those turning radiuses, making the throat of the intersection bigger, so there's room for turning vehicles and vehicles that are going straight through. This solution, we feel, will also help improve the situation with Hayward Street, where right now, anybody going west on 16 who wants to turn left onto Hayward Street backs up everybody behind them because there's no way to get around. This will open it up enough so that we can squeeze in a left turn lane there. And this alternative also will include some land takings, so that's something that the town needs to look at closely and, discuss with legal counsel. But we think that this would be a very good solution for this intersection. It would definitely improve safety. For example, one of the issues with this intersection is turning trucks are constantly hitting the light posts and the signposts because there's just not enough room. They're going up on the sidewalk.
Chief, what is it, 3 so far? 3 lights?
3 in the past couple months.
Yeah.
It's I watched a truck today. You just can't swing. It's such a tight turn to try to move an 18-wheeler. And just as Lonnie said, he went up on the sidewalk, and I was just waiting for my pole to fall so I could go after him.
These are the new poles?
And, as far as being practical and reasonable for the future, I mean, this would go a long way in really solving some of the problems in that area, But we have to move and discuss it, so we will discuss it.
And it's a tight intersection, as you know. I mean, Haywood, we boxed it out, but as Bonnie's saying, you have vehicles traveling west, and as you look at this, you can see that you have the ability to move in this diagram, which is, Larry took the time to do this. We appreciate it, but you'd probably end up with 2 or 3 vehicles that you would be able to bring over, so vehicles going westbound would go by them.
Yeah.
The other issue is people would be less inclined to block that intersection coming eastbound because they have to wait to get over to their left turn lane. Where many of them, as you know, jump it at this point because the state moved the lane back towards Olivas.
And that's a concern I have, Chief. I have to say right away. The state just went through all these intersections. They left us, we started off with intersections that trucks couldn't turn in. And when they left, we have intersections that trucks can't turn in. So when we talk about state, I get concerned because when I see some of the things like up in front of Memorial Hall, Charlie's, that area where they've cut out rights up on Pine Street? And I see some of the other things they did. There's a fair amount, I don't know how much the other board members have heard from residents about how the state left this. That in a lot of cases it was an improvement. We got new lights, and the new lights are simply just better targets for trucks turning. that couldn't turn there before the new light poles went in, and still can't turn there. So, while I appreciate state funding coming along with what we would call improvements, some of them frankly aren't improvements. And so that's why when I hear this, I get very concerned. I see from the drawing a lot of potential in that drawing. I saw from previous drawings a lot of potential in those drawings. I just wonder and worry what the state's going to leave us with when we're done.
Right.
And I know there's not anything you can comment to. You know the areas that I've talked about. Others have seen it.
Yeah, I mean, we're taking down no turn on red signs.
Yeah, we're taking down signs as soon as they leave.
Scratches their head, so.
Exactly.
And, you know, spaces that were eliminated and spaces that were added, and, you know, we're dealing with
Part of
those.
the challenge is to plow.
Right, we're dealing with those as we can. I mean, I think some of it is, you know, that was a large project. We're talking major intersections all the way from the post office on down to this intersection. If we're talking the individual intersection, I mean, the question arises whether or not can we get the state funding to meet our drawings, and it's a town project but state funding, as opposed to the state taking over the whole project. You know, I mean, Vonnie and I are still dealing with these intersections on what we call opticoms, you know, that allow us to go through intersections. So, I think.
You understand the concern, the
Right,
nature of the
and that's what I'm
concern.
saying.
and
I
know
think
you're
our
dealing-
argument to the state is that this project's not as big as that last one. Give us the cash and let us do it right.
Yeah, because I'm really worried about the 109, but I'll let, I interrupted Vonnie, and I want to let her go on.
Well, I just want to make a comment on that, because I remember going to the public hearings that the state put on up at the town hall, and there was the whole row of engineers, and they had the long map out, and, you know, they made it quite clear that, you know, traffic was secondary, ADA accessibility for pedestrians was primary. And when you look at the roadways, you know, all the stuff you're talking about, eliminating right-hand turns, it was all at the expense or that was the expense of increased sidewalk, increased accessibility. They made no bones about it. That was their primary goal, which I thought, you know, I didn't think that was our primary need, but
Yeah.
I made my comment, but I must have gotten written down in the book somewhere.
Well, the original project started as just streetlights,
Yes.
That's correct.
and then it turned into handicap ramps, widening intersection, the whole thing got 5 times as big. So streetlights weren't something they were willing to do without doing everything. Right.
Yeah, so it really wasn't a traffic project, it was a ADA compliance accessibility issue for pedestrians. So, that's what we have.
Just to finish up, the other issues that have come up from concerned residents or sites on private property, as Dino mentioned, the site at Bugaboo Creek coming out. There's a sign there for no left turn. There's a sign for no left turn coming out of the Kohl's Plaza onto 109 across from 100 Medway Road. Those signs are on private property, so they are the property owner's responsibility. The sign placement was determined by the planning board during the site plan review process. And maintenance and replacement of the signs can be enforced by the inspections department. That being said, we plan to contact these property owners and just ask them if they can replace or relocate their signs if the issue is a sightline issue. And I don't really anticipate us having to do any kind of actual enforcement through the inspections department. I see people being very cooperative with us on this. So we will talk to those owners, but we, as the town, cannot replace those signs or remove those signs ourselves.
Oh, makes sense.
But yeah, we'll work with the people who own those properties.
And also on 100 Medway Road, the enter sign is blocking, so you
Right.
try to take a right turn, you gotta really watch it, you know? And I'm sure he'll move it, like we said, Scotty, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Kevin will move that
Right.
readily, as soon as we tell him, you know?
I understand they had a conversation with them and that they're gonna carry it. I think they're gonna lower it down.
Yeah.
Is that what it was, Larry?
Yeah, both of them, the enter and the
Lower
exit
that.
sign will be lowered.
So, and I didn't have to wait very long to get a picture of this intersection all jammed up too.
So,
Any other comments or questions?
as far as well, steps going forward, we'll continue to do what we do, right? Maybe, what do you think the next step should be as far as what we
Well,
can do?
for all of these individual projects, and they should be viewed as individual projects, we will keep pushing with our consultants, pushing with the state, pushing with our legislators, whatever needs to be done to advance them.
Okay.
Dean, you know what
Yeah.
would help me?
Yeah.
Is an anticipated schedule. And whether it be an optimistic schedule, or what you think is grounded and based on reality, and the funding. I know some of it you have to anticipate, and the assumption there is that if it makes this funding source by this, here at the state, then here's the date, and that's a fair assumption.
I was
Because I
planning
think we
on
ought to
actually,
prioritize it.
I was planning on actually putting these transportation projects into my long-term plan for funding, as requested by the Finance Committee. So, yeah, we will come up with a schedule for these and when they might be funded, and then what the town's share or liability might be.
Might be, yeah, and your best guess. I know that there's another piece that concerns me, and that's the Gibbs gas station and the amount of land taking there. I know we would have to work with council, not just if we were interested in the land taking, but on top of that, the historical issue that exists there with the 21E and all the test wells, what kind of liability we'd have
Absolutely.
with that property, so.
Yeah, there's still quite a bit that needs to be looked at with that property.
Yeah.
Brian, you had something?
Yeah, Vonnie, the DOT memo talks about the 2.7 million. What is that exactly targeted to cover? Which one of these intersection projects?
That's the intersection of Route 109 and Route 16.
So it's 2.7 just for that intersection alone?
Correct.
Okay, because, so what does it mean? It says Route 16 from Route 109 to Beaver Street. Is that,
Oh,
so I'm
my
not,
mistake, sorry, that's for the roundabout.
No, I think
Did it
that's.
say Route 16 to Beaver Street?
Well,
Yeah,
that's
it's
what it
East,
says on
it's
here.
East Main, East Main Street from the intersection with 109 to Beaver Street, so it's going in front of the Stop and Shop Plaza. That finishes what the downtown,
Route
Route
16 from 109 to Beaver. I'm just
I
trying to
don't
get it.
think I don't think the plan is for them to go all the way up to Beaver Street, though.
There's discussion that they were gonna do pave and brand from about the 99 restaurant back, is my memory. And they would do paving back up East Main Street, up East Main as well, in the other direction towards Gibbs. And then that whole intersection, and then the portion, in other words, they would do a couple hundred yards of paving, rebuild, the roadway coming to the intersection. So 99 coming west,
Yeah,
through the intersection, headed towards 85 and 16, and then over on 109, it would go a distance, as they did on all the other intersections.
all right, so then how does that relate to the memo that you gave us from Central Transportation Planning staff?
Related to the 2.7 or
Yes,
related?
yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, is
So
that,
that's,
are they looking at some of the items contained in this memo as part of that 2.7, or is that totally a separate project?
the ADA issues will be a separate project, and that will happen much sooner, much faster. They're planning to start within the next couple of months on addressing the ADA issues.
Right, and that's in the arbitration memo, all of these
Correct.
different things right here. I guess what I'm trying to get a sense of, you showed or you talked about the 5 alternatives that are in here. Is that incorporated in the state's 2.7 million?
No,
Okay.
no, that's a different location, a different project.
All right, so that 2.7 million is not part of those 5 alternatives of which you showed us 2?
That's correct.
Okay, so of those 5 alternatives, that segment of this discussion, what's the status on that? in terms of, where are we at on that? Is that, are we looking to do engineering, or?
We have an alternatives analysis, so we don't even have a preliminary design at this point.
Okay.
That's
All
the
right.
status on that. They don't have any kind of,
So that's in its
good
very
costs or-
embryonic stages?
Yes,
Okay, all
absolutely.
right. So that's not anything to do with that 2.7 that the state has said. Call back
Correct.
my daughter later. She probably needs money.
that's correct.
Okay.
That's separate.
All right,
So
so,
the intersection of Route 16 and Route 109 was supposed to be addressed in the last DOT project
remember
when
that,
they
and
did
it
East
got
Main
pulled out.
Street.
Got
And it
pulled
got pulled out.
got pulled out.
And at that time, they estimated the cost of it was about $1 million.
Yeah.
So this 2.7 just is a little bit more improvements on all sides of the intersection, so a little bit more up 16, a little bit more up 109. And I haven't seen a plan yet for exactly what that will be or what that means. All we got was this letter, and we didn't
Right,
even
okay.
really know.
All right, so that's that segment. And so this here, we talked about the 5 alternatives. That's just kind of long-range thought planning.
Correct.
Okay, so now, we know that, Kevin Meehan bought land from the town and coupled it with land that he had for a supposed hotel project on the easterly side of McDonald's.
That's right.
So that's gonna be coming before the planning board if that proceeds, okay? So what degree of participation can we be prepared to show the applicant that, given that increased development, it might be a good idea to go with that roundabout?
Larry, do you want to speak to that?
Well, I think he's already aware of it. The IDC had looked at this and hired FST to do the initial roundabout schematic, what was it, in 2007?
FSD.
FST, Fay, Spofford and Thorndike, an engineering company. So FST had done the original design. When CTPS asked about,
CTPS.
Central Transportation Planning Staff,
This memo here.
ask about projects based on this current program they're looking at, and wanted to look at the intersection of 109 and Beaver Street. I included that roundabout proposal, that's why it's in here. And it ended up being the preferred option. So the context of this latest memo, the draft technical memo, is that this is going to Mass Highway for their consideration. With the Central Transportation Planning staff recommending these things,
Right.
that moves it forward.
I know, but
at
that's
Mass Highway.
way off, so presumably, we're gonna be hit with a development much sooner than that.
Well, to the extent that
Which-
that's coming down the pike, no pun intended, sooner than CTPS and the state may
Right.
move on things, we're making sure that the parties involved are aware that this concept exists and it'll benefit both parcels on the south
Right.
side of 109.
as well as the new project. And it seems to me
Well,
that.
that's, yeah,
it
especially
seems
the
to
new
me that-
project.
Yeah, it seems to me that the new project, I mean, if there ever was a straw that broke the camel's back, that's gonna be the one. And I don't know that the project could exist without that kind of a development. Now what Dina was referencing, the prior roundabout that we got presented, that was also coupled with a proposed development that did not go forward.
That hasn't happened yet.
That
that's
did not
correct.
go forward, but, it was the type of thing where, if this business comes in, we're gonna be, going forward and doing these kind of roadway improvements. So I guess, towards maybe Bill's point, how can we, kind of take the bull by the horns and effectuate this faster? I think whatever planning, design work that we could do independent, so that when the planning board gets hit with that application, I think that's gotta be a requirement of the project, for safety concerns alone.
Yeah, it depends on the specific type of development that's being proposed there. Not every development probably would benefit as much from a two-way Beaver Street. I'm not quite sure that there are many that wouldn't benefit quite a bit from a two-way Beaver Street to improve access.
Well, I think
So,
any project, I mean, if he's talking about a major hotel, I mean, with traffic in and out, I don't see how you could do it otherwise.
Well, it wasn't.
So I guess what I'm saying is that, to the degree that we can do any planning, preparation, engineering, whatever, so that, anticipating that project, I think the planning board has to be very strong to advocate for the inclusion of that roadway improvement as part of that project.
Well, I
You
think they
agree?
will. I think they will.
Okay.
No, good point.
The other roundabout at exit 22 was actually at the southbound ramps for 495, and the state was requiring that. And in fact, it was that design that prompted us to look at utilizing a roundabout feature as a way to get a two-way Beaver Street, because obviously that's not the southbound ramps, it's now on a
Yeah.
municipal
And they
roadway,
work
but-
real well. My understanding of a roundabout is smaller than
yeah.
the things down the Cape.
And, yeah, it's not a rotary,
There's
it's
one in
smaller.
Worcester near the old train station, and it
Exactly.
works real well.
Exactly.
Works very, very well.
Yep.
And it certainly would be ideal in that location. And, I really think, because if in fact we are in the embryonic stages, then I don't know if we're ever gonna see this, during our adult lives. So, the only alternative is, if there's a development coming forward that has the resources, that has the desire, it's gotta be a requirement.
Yeah,
Plain and
there are
simple.
only two property owners affected in that area. So it would, in that context, it would simplify coordination.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So I think the planning board, and I'm sure you've communicated that to them, they've got to be ready to fly when they get hit with this proposal. I would think.
And to Brian's point, I would expect that there to be a lot of willingness up on Beaver Street of businesses that might like to also see that happen and may be willing to help.
Now, in the past,
But
we've-
I'm sorry.
Yeah, in the past, we've, 10 years ago, we went to some of those employers, the large ones, and asked for some type of financial assistance. Some were willing, some didn't, but that, I think everyone has to, even us now, for example, besides, like Brian and Bill are both right as far as, how do we expedite this whole process so that it's not, 2050 when it's implemented. So between doing what we are doing, Vaughn, your ideas, any grants that our legislators may be able to obtain for us, like they have in the past, and even the community. I mean, this is if you ask most people, what's a priority? They're gonna say traffic. So even if we had to apply some of the monies that we have towards these types of projects or our recommendations, I think we should look at that. Because if we're serious, we're gonna do it. Otherwise, you can talk all you want, but in order to have movement, I think everybody has to participate.
And that's the FinCom talking about, the 5-year plan, so we can
Right.
do our planning.
We
But I
need-
want to
we
go
need
back.
plan ahead for this, so.
I want to go back to a comment that Larry had talking about a roundabout, when we talked about a roundabout, he talked about 2 businesses being impacted. How would we do that? I'm thinking about obvious impact to mobile, I'm thinking about an obvious impact to
Well,
Burger King.
I was talking about property owners needing to make their land available for the reconstruction.
So you're saying we wouldn't need anything from Burger King, mobile, McDonald's?
You had it here in the picture.
Yeah, I don't
He had it
remember
here.
which slide it was.
I'm seeing at least four property owners impacted immediately by that.
There are only 2 properties on the south side of 109
Yeah.
that land would be required from to do the roundabout. That's why when IDC hired the consulting firm to look at it in the first place, we intentionally had it offset to the south because the other properties are already developed. And the other 2 properties, one of them hasn't been developed yet, and the other one is eventually going to be redeveloped again. So they were able to actually make it work somewhat offset, so that there are only 2 property owners that have land that would be necessary to accommodate it.
Yeah, I appreciate your optimism, I think at the end of the day, the town's gonna be looking to grab land on both sides. That's all right.
Okay, Vaughn, go ahead. Oh,
That's it, that's all we had for you.
Mr.
Wow.
Chairman,
Yeah, we have two other items. Chief, you want to do the,
if we could pull up, there's an item I know that's later in your correspondence that deals with acceptance
intersection?
of local road curve locations. We did receive information from the state where they have a willingness to come out, engineers, take a look at roads that have curves in them that may be
G1.
creating, hazardous condition.
Sure.
These are particular roadways that, as you know, we've been removing speed limit signs that were posted that should not have been. And the recommendations from the state right along have been, well, you ought to do other postings. So once I identified the grant, I've worked closely with Vonnie and Scott Crisafulli and Larry to identify the locations where we have the tightest curves. So Beaver Street, north of Mason Drive, so you're dealing with that S-turn up there on Beaver Street as you come down, very narrow. Again, south of Maple Street, down towards Roland Way, Highland Street up at Purdue, that very sharp turn. It's kind of like an L. And then we looked at Central Street, basically coming up towards Mount Pleasant as you're going up the hill, and then all the way through those S-turns until you come to the top of the hill. So the state's willing to, they'll send out engineers that will take a look at all of those locations, and they'll prepare the drawings, and from there, the placement of signs. They'll provide us with all the signs, all the posts, and
Chief, they pay,
working with Scott, we're gonna
Yeah.
get them installed.
they'll pay for everything.
They'll pay for all of that, with the exception of the labor to install them.
Yeah, and the site visit is in March.
Everything, the state pays for everything up to that point.
I'll move.
I'll second.
Motion by Brian, seconded by Bill. All in favor, opposed? And then, Chief, the other one is the, no turn on red on South Main Street, at Main Street.
Completed,
Oh, okay.
completed. They took the sign down today, working with Scott and working with the fire chief. The fire chief was out replacing lights today. The board, my understanding, had already approved that. I hope.
We'd
Well,
have-
if you didn't,
Oh, yeah,
you didn't approve it quickly because the sign's already back down Scott's shop.
I wanna
The
put it back
honorable
up.
board approved it. Okay.
We got our hands on the
Take
lift
it
and
down
took
next
care of
Just had to
business.
borrow the fire department to take it down. that's
Okay,
all.
no, listen, on behalf of the board, seriously, thank you. Great job on this. It's the first go-around, and we know things take time, but if we can do some of the other things and keep working on it, then we'll go from there. Yeah,
I just want to raise
Yeah.
something.
go ahead, yeah.
Yeah, I just, while we have all the traffic people here, I just want to bring up a parochial concern, which was brought to my attention by a neighbor up on Congress Terrace. Apparently, the guidance systems, will bring you up Congress Terrace to Milford High School. And of course, you can't go through because there's a cul-de-sac that ends before you get to the high school. One of my neighbor indicates that constantly cars are going up there. I hadn't seen it until I think it was Saturday, and about 3 Assabet buses went up there looking to try to get to the high school. So if you can take a look at it at the top of Congress Terrace where it meets Caroline Drive, maybe a sign indicating not a throughway to Milford High School, because apparently the guidance systems will take you there, and it's bringing a lot of people up to the cul-de-sac.
They take people up the one-way on Central Street, and we notify them and let them know that it's a one-way.
Yeah.
They take people down the bike path as well,
Yeah.
at the end of
Really?
Veterans Memorial Drive, so.
Well, it's-
I don't know.
But yes, that is a location where there should
Yeah,
be some more
Just take a look
signage.
at it, so, you had 2 or 3 Assabet buses roll right by the house, I'm like, all right, they're not getting through.
Mr. Chairman, just for the traffic rules and orders, so you did vote to take that sign down, South Main, no right turn, right? Okay.
Yep, all done.
I'm good.
Good job.
It's in the minutes, no question. Okay, thank you so much.
It is?
Thank you. Good work.
I don't know that it is.
Scott got his book, he's all set.
Thanks, Scotty.
You get to,
Yeah, make sure you read that tonight. It's a small book. Okay. All right.
great.
And if
Have a
you,
good night.
if you don't mind, while I'm here,
No,
I'd
go
like
ahead.
to give you a quick update on
Yes.
stormwater issues.
Quick, so you can go home, okay?
And then I would like to go home, yes.
To the little one. All right.
Oh, okay, is this the same thing?
Is this,
Yeah, pass that
Yeah.
down, please.
Okay, yeah.
This was not on the agenda.
No.
Just an addition,
okay?
so you and I.
So, in the last 2 weeks, I've attended 2 meetings on the draft MS4 EPA permit. MS4 stands for Municipal Separated Storm Sewer Systems. And it is the stormwater permit that we have been waiting about 6 years for. This is the draft. So the first meeting I went to was at the 495 Partnership, and they discussed the permit in general and how it applies to all Massachusetts communities. The second meeting I went to was at EPA in Boston, and they focused in on some of the issues that are specific to the Charles River watershed communities. The first version of this permit that got tabled didn't include a special section on the Charles River watershed, and there are a couple of other watersheds too that have specific TMDLs, and so this one does. And I approached the gentleman from EPA and asked him, well, what does this mean in terms of the residual designation authority? Does that mean that there won't be one, or it will be basically written the same as the permit? And he said that it's probably going to be much abbreviated from what it was, because a lot of those conditions that they had discussed in the RDA were brought into this new permit. So the permit is draft at this point. They're accepting comments until the end of December. December 29th is the cutoff date. I will be making comments. Anybody else in town who would like to read the permit, I can get you a copy, and you're absolutely welcome to make comments as well. There are the original brief that I wrote on this after going to the meetings was 4 pages long, but I boiled it down into some key points for you to know tonight. So the comment period will end December 29th. They are estimating that it will take EPA another year to turn around the final permit, and then there will be a 6-month grace period to align with municipal fiscal years, and the permit will not actually become effective until July 1st, 2016. All of the communities will need to submit a new notice of intent, and there are more stringent requirements for the stormwater management plan, the illicit discharge detection and elimination program, and stormwater retention and treatment improvements for everybody in Massachusetts, not just our communities. One of the first things required by the new permit is a complete map of the stormwater system. That includes all outfalls, all catch basins, manholes, pipes, everything related to the stormwater system. And we are currently working on this. We are, our consultants, environmental partners, are out in the field, or have been out in the field with their GPS units locating all of our stormwater structures, and then their next task will be to sit down and to look at the connectivity of where each structure flows to and where it ultimately ends up. So we'll have this information. This is a little side plug for GIS, because you know that's one of my pet projects. We will have this information in GIS format. We just need a GIS system so that we can actually do something with it. For the Charles River watershed, there are more specific nutrient requirements, specifically phosphorus. Milford will have to put together a phosphorus control plan, and depending on how, there are a couple of different methods that we can use to assess our phosphorus load. We will have to remove up to 46% of the phosphorus. Bellingham and Franklin are in a similar position. They have, it's not exactly the same number, but it's pretty close. So again, these 3 communities are really kind of being put out there as the example to everybody else.
Vaughn, that's 46%. Is that doable? I mean, is that?
Well, that's the question that was debated the first time around with this permit, and when the residual
Yeah, there was a lot of
designation
questions on the
authority came
science
up.
at all, right? And there was a,
Well, it's possible, but is it affordable? I mean, is it possible within a reasonable means. And the study that was done by Horsley Witten on the RDA that was written for the Charles River watershed estimated that it would cost Milford $60 million to achieve these water quality goals. So, you know, that's definitely something that needs to go in with the comments to the permit. I know I've had a lot of conversations with Don DiMartino in Bellingham and Brutus Cantareggi in Franklin, and they've been doing a lot of infiltration type projects, so rain gardens, grass strips, that kind of thing. We can certainly try that in Milford, but we don't have the same types of soils they do. We have a lot of granite, we have a lot of bedrock. So we may have to be even a little more creative in how we try to address the phosphorus issue here. So that's definitely something that we'll be looking at. The full implementation of the plan is going to be phased over 20 years, which is better news than originally I think they wanted it done in like 5 years.
Right.
EPA will be providing each community with our baseline TMDLs, total maximum daily loads is what TMDL stands for.
Which we've not exceeded ever, right?
I don't know that we've exceeded them. The river itself, the Charles River itself does exceed
I understand,
the TMDLs.
but I'm saying in terms of compliance, in the last conversation I had with Mike Santoro said that we had never exceeded those total load. And so we were always in compliance with our permits.
We were always in compliance with our previous permit, but this is much more stringent, so I'm not sure if that's correct.
Well, that's not in effect yet. Up to now, we've been in compliance, right?
We're currently in compliance with our previous permit, which has been expired for several years.
Right, I understand. And, one of the things I think this board needs to get a handle on, because I think we need to get our arms around the financing here. If we're talking about $60 million, that was never extrapolated out over a 20-year period. So I can only imagine what the last 5 years of that 20-year program could cost in, $2034. I also spoken with Jerry and Mike, so that until there was guidance from this board, there was no representative of this community representing that we were willing to or ready to move forward with a regional stormwater management program.
You mean
combining with Bellingham.
Stormwater utility.
A stormwater utility
Right.
with Bellingham, and so I want to make sure, maybe it's better that we sit down in a meeting and talk about it. I'm just thinking it out, that before Vonnie get too far out on a plank, she needs to understand where her community is. I know there were also discussions about the possibility of Milford looking at filing suit with the EPA because of the unfair targeting of just a few communities along the Charles River. So there have been lots of discussions over the years. I just don't want to see you in a position where you're providing comment back to the draft that may take the community in a direction it may not want to go.
I understand that. My comments thus far are more about requirements of the permit that I feel are redundant, that would be a waste of the town's money. Things things like the inequity, I do feel that it's not equal, that only 3 communities in the whole Charles River watershed are being targeted. And the fact that there has not really been any study done that takes into account Milford soils and Milford's ability to infiltrate stormwater back in. The only way to remove phosphorus is to filter it, and usually the most economical way is to filter it through soils. So building huge sand beds in Milford is probably not realistic or cost effective.
I guess my concern in part is that you may be commenting on science that we haven't necessarily bought into and calculations we haven't even bought into. Just the.
Well,
so-
I don't intend to do that, and if you would like to see if you would like to sit down and discuss any comments about the draft permit, I'd be more than happy to do that.
You know, because my concern is at the end of the day, we're going to figure out a way to tax, at least from my understanding in the last EPA proposal and where they were in their draft, they were looking to have Milford, Franklin, and Bellingham implement what is essentially a rain tax on the businesses with over two acres of either parking lot or roof. Now, I know that's a less than scientific assessment of it, but that's the way I interpreted what they were talking about. So it's concerning.
We were pretty successful in the past, working with our legislators, state, federal. We should probably consider, being close to them. Now, the elections are over tomorrow.
Oh, I
To
saw
convey-
John Fernandez at one of these meetings. We talked.
Well, John filed the reduction of phosphorus in the fertilizers.
Exactly.
So
Yeah.
he's
And
not
how much of that science has been altered as a result of the reduction in the potential benefits of the reduction in phosphorus and fertilizer as an example of one of the things that's changed? I'm just wondering how much of that has been incorporated into their study. Because if it was zero benefit,
Well, there have not been any follow-up studies. So the TMDL that is in the permit is the TMDL that was established in 2005. So the good news is if we have implemented improvements in the last 10 years, we can demonstrate that we've made a reduction, then we get credit for that. Because the baseline that they'll be starting with is that 2005 TMDL.
no, I guess my concern is the original premise to improve the Charles River may be based on calculations and data when phosphorus use is in place for a fertilizer. What I'm wondering is that fundamental argument still valid with the new legislation that went in place and that Representative Fernandez helped spearhead? Would that same argument be true going forward? Is Charles River in as desperate a shape with the ban on phosphorus and fertilizers?
What the EPA is saying is yes. They are giving our community and the other communities a credit for that ban on phosphorus and fertilizer. They're just giving you a straight lump sum credit for it, which may or may not measure up. Part of the initial program that has to be done in the first 5 years is wet weather sampling and dry weather sampling of all of our outfalls, and that's really where we're going to be able to demonstrate what we've got in terms of phosphorus levels.
Doesn't that seem a little backwards? Maybe it's just me, that they're going to issue a permit with limits and not have those studies done ahead of time? Maybe I'm just...
Well, you're saying they're relying on '05 numbers. So, if the legislation that was filed by John and Dick, if that's had effect, and theoretically, or I guess practically, phosphorus has been reduced, the burden would be on us to do some testing to show, hey, wait a minute, the baseline number was X, now it's X minus 10.
Correct.
Yeah. So I think that's where that benefit gets picked up.
Well, I think it would be worthwhile sitting in a separate meeting talking about this so
No
that...
question. And the other thing is like once the pond project is done, we should receive some credit because that'll be a reduction of phosphorus in the Charles River. But I really think, Vaughn, this was very good for you to come in. And I think at some point, whether it be before the holidays or after the holidays, I think we should meet with our representatives, senator, federal people, and discuss again where it's at, what are we doing, and just to make sure that everybody's on the same page.
Well, just a caution, Mr. Chair, because that Vonnie's trying to meet a commitment to provide draft input, which ends on December 29th. So whatever we do would absolutely have to be before the holidays, right?
And we can have-
Yes,
we can have-
I would
Yeah.
prefer to do it as soon as possible.
And they came to this, we met in here a couple of times, and they were very, well, everybody was very straightforward. They came to the table, they helped us out, and of course, the local people, the senator and representative, and even federally, most of them came forward and did, and worked with us, so maybe we can work on that, Rick, we'll schedule something.
My concern is that we may have to reject the premise, and that there being enough question on the science for their justification to do what they're doing. I know that there was a fair amount of people that had those concerns on the original hearings.
Mike kept
There
saying
is-
that the systems that they were thinking about doing scientifically weren't tested. Are you gonna receive is it gonna be reliable and valid it's gonna do what it says it's gonna do? That was some of the issues,
And also, just in the science leading up to the requirement for the permit, there was also some concerns there.
All right.
So,
Yeah, there's still quite a bit to talk about. I just wanted to give you this
Yeah,
update
no,
to
Okay.
let you know that,
Thank you.
we basically have a year and a half to, we have the next couple months to make our comments, and then a year
Yeah,
and a half to
okay.
decide what direction we want to go in.
Sure. Well, we need outside people to come in and, be involved in this, but, when I said 46%, I was thinking of something else. I didn't realize, again, it was 60 million. 60 million, if that were ever the case, that would
And-
be devastating for us.
wasn't there a figure that Mike threw out at one point that was nearly $100 million?
Yeah,
not
110 or
60?
something?
Yeah, so I just want to make sure that we're doing our math correctly, because it's orders of magnitude off what I recall Mike Santora's numbers being, so we
Yeah.
need to go back and pull out those.
Yeah, I
those
can't
documents.
speak
Yeah.
for where Mike got his
Yeah.
numbers. I
Well-
know that there have been a couple of different,
Well, the EPA brought
looks
in
at
a
this.
He acknowledged
consultant,
it.
because at some point, either the Charles River Watershed or the EPA, they would say, oh, no, it's only gonna cost $50,000, or some crazy number.
Yeah.
So they brought in a consultant, and
Verified the
they hit
numbers.
the brakes, because the consultant basically said that Milford's estimates were correct, whether it was 60 million or 100 million, I
No,
don't know what
it was
But,
100
and
plus.
that cost is not just the municipality, that's the private owners too. It takes into account a cost to private owners.
Much of it is.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so.
Much of it is. Much of it's just the EPA, through the municipality, looking to tax the businesses
So if
and
you-
being
yeah,
a
but-
pass-through
Yeah, if
for
you
the
have that
cost.
impervious surface or
Right.
whatever, you've gotta do some.
You have a
things,
roof,
so.
you have a parking lot, it's over 2 acres.
So then
Gonna
it
tax you
kinda
for
just,
the- for the
went
rain.
underground after that, at least from our
Right,
perspective.
right.
Because I think the EPA didn't know what the heck to do at that point. So,
That's why it was slowed down, because of all those concerns. But
So
we'll
if
work
it's,
on that.
if it's
We'll do it.
moving, then,
Yeah.
yeah, if we gotta do something.
Yeah. It's 9 o'clock. Let me get going. All right, anything else for Ronnie?
Thank you,
Ronnie,
Bonnie.
thank you, thank you.
thank you.
Thank you for a great night. Thank you. Okay, Town Administrator's Report.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. All
Thanks,
budget,
Ronnie.
all budgets on the jurisdiction of the board are on target. We've had some work done to the upper town hall ceiling. As you may have noticed, there were a few areas of the ceiling, 4 in particular, which needed repair and repainting. This work was done and completed last week, so we're very pleased about that. You also should have noticed the downtown decorations, the flags and the brackets have been installed. I just want to thank members of the Highway Department, the Parks Department, and the Custodial Department for their efforts. I also want to thank Braza and Mancini for the use of their lift truck. We also have a number of streetlights that were out. The fire chief actually went through today, and members of the fire department, and we're able to get 14 of the 16 installed. We have a couple of issues with 2 of them, which we'll hopefully figure out and straighten out. I want to thank them also. And then finally, just a brief update on the Woodland School. As a member of that committee, I just want to inform the board that the 90% construction document submittal for the school has been submitted to the MSBA, as well as the cost estimates and the updated project budget. Also, the request for bid schedule for the main bid package for the 16 sub-trade contractors has been set. The bids will be due on Tuesday, December 23rd, and I will continue to keep the board updated as that project itself proceeds. And that's all I have tonight.
Rick, let's send a letter to the members of the Decorations Committee, Scotty, and everybody involved.
Yep.
Appreciation of that project.
Sure.
It looks real nice. Brian, any questions for
No,
Rick?
no.
Bill?
No, if the wind the last few days isn't a good test for those
They
flags.
held up pretty well, I
They did
think
a
you
very
you
good
have to
job.
agree.
I went-
At
drove
least I
through
thought
there,
they did anyway.
Saw them all.
Yeah.
And I agree with Dino that it's appropriate that the Decoration Committee
Sure.
be acknowledged.
Okay, on the old business, Brian, anything?
Well, there's a couple of things. You should have a correspondence in your file
Oh,
about
the,
a dog
The
order.
dog, yes,
Yeah,
That's,
this was looking to,
it's under new business. But let's do it now if you want.
well,
No, actually, this is the second one that Brian wanted to
Oh,
bring
okay.
up, so.
as I'd given some correspondence,
Go
I
ahead.
got contacted by Antonio Cristino regarding a dog order that was done in September of 2011. And essentially, it required a dog to be spayed, and for whatever reason, it didn't happen. And now the dog is 8 years old, deaf, sight impaired, and has terminal cancer. So I guess just to adjust the records correctly, I'd be asking the board to amend the order of September 27th, 2011, to delete the requirement for a spaying. It would serve no.
I'd move, Mr. Chairman, to
Motion
make that change.
seconded, and that's unanimous. You want to do the other one?
Yeah, if you like, but I was, okay, then I have, let's see, that's a.
Burke's dog?
F4?
Yeah, that was matter of George Phillips versus Virginia Burke, and I'll just read the findings of fact. Number one, Virginia Burke resides at 70 High Street, the second-floor apartment in Milford. She is the owner of a neutered male Coton de Tulare dog named Baxter. On September 12th, 2014, Baxter, without provocation, attacked and bit the right leg of George Phillips, a resident of 70 High Street, first-floor apartment. Baxter went outside in a penned-in area, constantly barks in such a fierce, aggressive manner that neighbors are unable to remain outside or experience the quiet enjoyment of their homes. On at least 2 prior occasions, Baxter has nipped at individuals, but without causing serious injury. And pursuant to GL Chapter 140, Section 157, I find that Ms. Burke's dog Baxter is a dangerous dog, and I would recommend the following. Number one, the dog shall at all times, except as stated, be confined indoors to Ms. Burke's premises. The dog shall be allowed outdoors for walks, but only by Virginia Burke with a handheld leash, and further, the dog needs to be securely and humanely muzzled. If Ms. Burke is found in violation, the dog is subject to seizure and impoundment by the police, and further, the owner would be ordered to immediately surrender to the Milford Town Clerk the license and tags in her possession, and prohibited from licensing a dog within the Commonwealth for 5 years, and this finding needs to be reported to the Milford Town Clerk.
Mr. Chairman, I'd move to accept that
Motion by-
recommendation.
Motion by Bill, second. Any discussion? All in favor? Unanimous. Nice job. Did you have something else? for old
I
business?
just wanted to bring up, I guess under old business, just the process that we went through prior to the last town meeting with the Finance Committee. As that went forward, there were, comments, some members of the Finance Committee that it was a feeding frenzy, which, was clear hyperbole and not really the case at all. But I guess, what was more troubling is there was at least a facade of this process whereby unless your project was on this 5-year capital plan, it really should not have been considered. And, number one, that process has never been, put in writing, but I think more importantly, it was never articulated to any department heads or this particular board. So I think we had a fair degree of confusion during those meetings as to, the viability of a project and whether it, should go forward or not. So, moving forward, if in fact this is going to be the request of the Finance Committee, that, if it's going to be considered for a town meeting article, it needs to be placed on a capital plan. I think that policy has to be put in writing, and quite frankly, the Finance Committee is an advisory board, a recommending board. This board is a policy-setting board for the town. I would think it would be more proper for this board to put forth such a policy and promulgate that to all of the different town departments. And if in fact that's what the case is going to be, because department heads need to know that, even though some projects have permeated over time, unless it's on this plan, they're not gonna consider it. So I think department heads need to be put on notice of that. So, I'm not, it's late right now, and I'm not looking, to raise any discussion or question now. I simply bring the issue forward, and perhaps we can discuss it as a future agenda item, or if you wanna have meetings with the finance committee. But, the way that was put forward, I think, surprised a lot of different departments. It was not, particularly productive in the sense that there was some terminology throughout those meetings which was not applicable, and it gave the sense that somehow there's no planning done. And when you look at the reports from the financial team and the work that the department heads do day in and day out, nothing further could be the case. So I'm just looking to, have some dialogue and perhaps have it as an agenda item. But I think any policies concerning the town and, what goes forward and what doesn't go forward ought to come from this board and not the finance committee.
Yeah, I think it would be appropriate at a future meeting to have some sort of discussions. I think, a long time ago, we used to get together like every year, a couple of years, and sit down and talk about what we've done, policies, procedures, roles, and all that. It might be good to do that in the future, but I think it's something that we can both, think about, and then at the right time, we can discuss that. Because I think even at one of the last meetings, the FinCom was talking about procedures and practices and all that. So I think it might be appropriate for both of us to sit down and looking forward. And I think the only thing that would come out of it, and I think, is better management, streamlining the process, and eliminating any ambiguity that may exist.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, if you got a second, I think we have a 5-year planning process. We've just got to say how effective it is. There are times when I'm surprised at articles that show up on the warrant. I've asked the question about how did an article make it to a draft. I'm not expected to, at least personally, I'm not expecting to be surprised by articles from our department heads that work under the direction of the Board of Selectmen. I would expect it to be part of a 5-year plan so that we can make sure that we're at least being equitable with the other department heads. But I don't recall there ever being a discussion that said if it wasn't on the 5-year plan, it shouldn't be funded. I think we talked about cases of emergency, cases of urgency. I think there have been those cases. I'm not talking for the FinCom, I'm talking about myself. That we understand when things would have to come out of a 5-year cycle. We all own homes. We all know what it's like to have a water heater go, or a furnace go, or a roof suddenly fail and not meet its life expectancy. So I think those are understood, but I think we ought to articulate that and put it in the rationale. And I think there are also people within our financial planning team that are not aware of some of the requirements and some of the articles, some of the requirements that departments have and some of the articles that have popped up. I think they're surprised at them as well. And I've had that discussion with town accountant, I've had that discussion with Rick, I've had that discussion with others. So they're also being surprised and unable to plan for it appropriately. So I think Brian's suggestion is a good one, that we have that discussion. I think my interpretation of what the FinCom said is they wouldn't recommend favorable. That doesn't mean it's not going to get funded. They are a recommending body, and I think they understand the extent and scope of their responsibilities. But I think we can make it a lot easier on ourselves if we do make a more robust planning process.
And what you ran into during these last meetings was sometimes it has to be in the plan and sometimes it doesn't. Well, Middle School East, well, we know that's not on the plan, but we've been talking about it, so we think we should go forward. So, I think when you have these ambiguities, it leads to confusion and the illusion that there is no planning, when in fact there is planning. And, if there is this policy, it needs to be put in writing. And I think our board is the most effective to do that. So, yeah,
Agreed.
That's all I wanted to say.
Agreed.
So, and again, I know, it's 9:15, I
Yep,
apologize for bringing
agreed.
it up at this
No,
point.
no, it's fine.
But, if we can put it on the
No,
radar.
I think we can make
Yeah.
a better process.
And maybe, toss in a meeting and
I
put
think town
something
accountant,
together.
town accountant would be a perfect person to throw a draft together, because that's what town accountants do in terms of budget and budget planning.
I think it led to some unfortunate comments during the meeting, feeding frenzy in particular, where Milford is so far removed from a comment like that. But that kind of a helter-skelter process led to that. So, just as we go forward another year, I think if we have some discussion, we can, get some more clarity in the situation. That's all.
No, good points and both. I think this, we have a plan. We always have plans. I think you have to be a little flexible. I think if things come up that are good for the taxpayer and reasonable and you can afford it, then I think it should be looked at. But we'll address that. Bill, anything on the old business?
No, nothing, Mr. Chairman.
Boosters Club, the approval?
I'll move.
Second.
Motion by Brian, second by Bill. Any discussion? All in favor? The Santa Parade?
I'll move.
Motion by
Second.
Brian, second by Bill. It's unanimous. Appointing Sue Clark to the Commission on Disability?
Motion.
by-
Second.
motion, by Brian, seconded by Bill. Any discussion? That's unanimous. Lions Club, permit the
Move.
pancake,
I'll second it.
moved and seconded. This is from Marilyn Lovell, trustees, Vernon Grove Cemetery, are asking that a bill for the porta potty.
$100.
Move that.
Second.
$104.33.
There's not
Motion
much
and
that's more
seconded.
important than that.
That's right.
Yeah.
Any
Trapped in the
discussion? All
cemetery.
in favor? Yeah. Rick, want to take National Grid?
Yeah, could we do F7? I know you said we didn't really do it just to make
Okay, F7, South Main Street.
move of the
traffic
no
aid.
turn on red.
Move.
Yeah, motion by Brian, seconded by Bill.
I've got to think about this. No,
Okay.
I don't think the
Thank you.
honorable board
Thanks a
approved
lot.
that already. But anyway, we'll
I
do it
thought there
again.
was a
That's
clear
so serious.
consensus, if nothing else.
The chief was clairvoyant.
Right,
Yeah, I just,
he's clairvoyant, all right. All right, that's unanimous. Yeah, go ahead, Rick.
yeah,
National Grid?
National Grid, it's a request by National Grid for a grant of a license for the 24 Pearl Street, which we know is the youth center. They want to install, operate, and properly maintain the overhead and underground lines, anchors, and equipment. So what we're going to do here is just the grant of the license, and I'd need a motion for that.
I'll move.
Motion by Brian, second
I'll second.
by Bill. Any discussion, all in favor? Number 9, we're gonna, we need more information, so we'll take that up at a later meeting. On the gutter replacement, Rick?
Yes, what you have in front of you is a proposal from Russo Bar Associates to provide designer services for the town hall gutter replacement project, which we know money was appropriated for, and we are also using money from 2 existing articles for the for this project. The scope of the project is outlined there. What I'm asking the board to do is approve retaining Russo Bar as the design architect for this project. The scope of the work is there, the services to be provided are there. We're hoping, if weather permits, to finish by the end of the year. It's somewhat
Wow.
aggressive, but that's our hope. So I'd ask that the board approve the recommendation, which also comes from
I'll
the town
second.
engineer.
Motion by Brian, second by Bill. Any discussion, all in favor? Unanimous. And then lastly, Milford Youth Football.
Motion.
Second.
Motion by Brian, second by Bill. That's unanimous. We did 1 and 2. Anything else that we missed here? Brian?
I think we're all set. Thank
Yeah, I
you.
think we are.
We just have one item for executive session on employment contract discussions, negotiations. Motion for executive
I'll
session.
move.
I'll second.
Motion by Brian, seconded by Bill. Roll call vote.
Aye.
Aye.
All in favor, and we will not be coming back into open session. Good night.